My name is Tammy Lea Meyer, and I'd like to welcome you to the Voices of the Impact Economy Summit. I'd like to welcome Jeff Clearwater, who's joining us from an intentional community, and he works with VillageLabs. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yes, it's great to see you, and it's great to see you in the forest.
Yeah, it actually happens to be the best signal. What a blessing, huh?
Yeah, that's wonderful. So to start off with, my question is, are you concerned about the state of the world today, Jeff?
Oh my! I mean, the state of the world it's an understatement. Concerned. I mean, we live in like this accelerated rush of potential at the same time we're about to go over the cliff. So it's an amazing time to be alive. And even though I'm concerned, you have this sense that there's just as much potential to take it and expand it into this wonderful reality as much as there is the potential to crash into the wall. So yes, concern is an understatement, but very excited as well.
Awesome. And do you think we can turn things around?
I really do. I have a deep faith in humanity. I'm seeing such a emergence of solutions, such an emergence of transcendent thinking, and such an emergence of there's a whole movement of us that are conceiving and building something that just a few years ago, one might have great despair about. And so I can imagine that process continuing in a few years as well. So I am hopeful, but maybe I'm just a romantic,
Might as well have hope.
Yeah.
So what are some of the hows for you? What are the ways that you think that we can turn things around?
Well, it's really clear to me, I've been doing social change work for much of my life, many years in sustainability and in renewable energy, but all during that, it's been very clear to me that the economic system is the limiting factor. It's the thing that holds humanity back. I really think humanity is ready to evolve in a profound way, and I think we are in many ways, in consciousness and in the ways that even just that we treat each other, even though there's terrible things going on in the world, there's a certain consciousness that's emerging. There's a certain humanity that's growing up. But in the midst of our economic system, we can't set that free. It is held back by what we call the invisible architecture. It's not so invisible to us, but we think it's invisible to many. It's like fish in water. They don't know if the water's bad or not. It's because they live in it, Yes. And the economic system is much like that. It's fundamentally broken at the core, so there's no way we can express our full humanity in it. Yes. So, and at the same time, the good news is, now that we're starting to see that, the fix is just as profound. The fix enables such a great leap forward. So I'm really excited to be part of those that are imagining that.
Yes. So, I mean, coming to the Impact Economy Summit, that is a direct hit, and your work and your passion and your thoughts are so appreciated. What are some of the hopes that you have for the summit?
Well, I think we're moving in the movement from theory to practice. I think we're, I'm so excited that Art Brock's going to be there, and some of the people that, for me, have paved the way in terms of theory and in terms of, and art has incredible practical application. We at VillageLab, we like to see ourselves as kind of the practical applied arm of the sacred economics movement. Like we're out there on the ground trying out this stuff and developing tools. And so I'm really excited to share what we've learned and to learn from others what they've learned.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So let's talk about VillageLabs. Tell us about the project. I had the honor to talk to Fernanda last week, but you go.
Yeah. So VillageLab it's singular. We see ourselves, well, first of all, we see the village meme as a meme that needs to come back. We mean village in all aspects of the word. There's a certain appropriate scale to human development, human interaction, and human organization that really should express itself at the village scale. And we don't mean going back in time to villages. We mean the village of the future. So VillageLab is a place to experiment with all what we call all four quadrants of sustainability. It's the economic, the ecological, the political or the decision making, the power sharing, as well as the social. So we are consultants. We bring forward to what we call communities of intent. So any community that is has a community of purpose, a community of practice, or a community of place, we call it. So we see communities of purpose, practice, and place to be the hope of the future. These are the small groups that are getting together and really organizing, experimenting, building the new world in front of us. And they really have been developing the solutions for many, many years. And many of the solutions are ready. There's a lot of success happening in communities around decision-making processes like sociocracy and social agreement fields and how to be together. And in the economics realm, we're kind of the communities movement kind of represents those that experiment with sharing. We've been doing sharing a long time, and so the sharing economy is not new. It's been going on for thousands of years. But inside that, there's a fundamental rethink of even how to perceive wealth and currency. And a lot of our work comes out of the work of Arthur Brock and Eric Harris Brown. Their theory in metacurrency to us is really the brilliant breakthrough that we needed. And so we're out here applying it. We're out here thinking about how do we create systems that acknowledge multiple levels of wealth, that empower currencies that empower the multiple levels of wealth. So yeah. It's hard to kind of conceive almost of non-tradable currencies, but for many people, but for us, that's the world we swim in. Yes. And we've gone through a systematic development from the personal to the planetary in terms of our tools. So I could tell you about a few of those tools if you'd like.
Sure. Before we dive into that, maybe you can give me an example of some of these communities of practice, of one of them, so that we could get a sense of how big of the impact that your work has on the ground.
Sure. Well, there's a lot of different types of communities. There's the intentional communities movement. I'm sitting right here at Sirius Community in Western Massachusetts, which is a Findhorn daughter community, and it's 30 people living on 80 acres. And so there's experiments in social living going on. But what's really exciting is that those of us in the network of those communities, the Fellowship for Intentional Community or the Global Eco Village Network, are starting to do compare and contrast across all of the communities. So we can start to see the various types of economic systems and the various types of decision-making processes. And we can kind of envision a program of best practices. And so we're learning from all of them. But it's not just residential communities, it's communities of purpose and practice. So everything from online chat rooms to churches to Occupy. I mean, those are all communities of purpose and practice. And the common theme is that they're sitting in circle and they're figuring out a new way. They're figuring out how to live in harmony with each other and with the earth. And the economic piece that they're experimenting with may seem humble at a small level, but it is the laboratory for the planet. Mm-hmm. So that's how we see our work.
And what I love about how you present your work is the learning and teaching that's there with that, because really we have to share with each other. It's kind of the knowledge, the sharing of the knowledge economy piece that you're really fostering as well.
Yeah, and what's beautiful is like we're envisioning a new series of workshops that VillageLab is putting forward, but unlike any other series of workshops, we're able to use metacurrency principles, which means that the reputation currency that the students get, or the participants get, I should say, coming to the workshops, they can use those in the community's movement. So in other words, if you came to, it's a very simple way of how reputation currency works, is if you came to 5 or 6 different workshops and maybe you learned decision-making processes, and maybe you learned permaculture, and maybe you learned a new paradigm economics or applied sacred economics, once you have those in your kind of reputation currency, you can then spend them or use them to travel in the worlds that use them. You can then go to communities that appreciate those skills and have that currency. So they're very simple ways, but very powerful ways where the new economy is emerging, and we really can see a post-capitalist world. We really are starting to see the build. We're starting to understand the parts and actually practice them. It's not just theory anymore.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about the shift of value, and valuation, because there's a lot in that word value, and you've been talking about reputation and all of those pieces. Can you just talk into how do our values need to shift to make these kind of transitions? How does the concept of value need to shift?
Yeah. So a very, very simple example. Let's say we worked in a team together and we were building a product. It could be a widget or a software product or whatever. And at the end of the month, instead of just using hours to distribute the profit, what if we cared about each other's personal development? What if we cared about each other's professional development? Mm. And what if we cared about each other's relations at home? And what if we cared about how much carbon it took for you to get to work? And how about if all of those things were tracked all month?
Yes.
So I may be working with you, and I might give you a currency for your abilities. I might give you cans. You can do it because you've really grown in your professional ability. And you might say, well, you're a little behind in that, but you're so much fun to work with. And so I give you some flowers, and someone else might come along and say, it's great working with you, but we can't do this anymore. We got to fly across the country to do it, and the carbon footprint's way off the charts. We can start to develop multiple what we call currency constellations, and look at how our work together, at the end of the month, we can distribute the profits not from just a monetary sense. We can say, let's track your development and professionally so that we can actually find the weak spots and the strong spots and cross-pollinate those with the rest of the team. And so it's those kinds of full valuation that where money becomes like one of the little things on the side. It becomes one of the mediums of many that are just or more valuable.
Yes, wonderful.
I think our biggest example, our biggest excitement is to share what we call the wealth stewardship circle. And it's kind of our crown jewel of our applied economics. And
great, let's hear about it.
So what we've done is, imagine if you could tear down the firewall between for-profit and nonprofit. Imagine you could tear down the firewall between philanthropy and investment. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is you can imagine a spectrum of enterprises that are producing wealth along multiple currencies, multiple valuations. Mm. When you have a firewall between for-profit and nonprofit, you tend to push each of them to the edges and make neither of them very efficient. One goes to the profit edge and has to worry about money. The other has to go to the values edge only and be the one that can convince the philanthropist to give them money for their good deeds. But what if you took the firewall down and you allowed a spectrum of multiple types of wealth to be generated by any enterprise? What happens is the middle tends to fill in, and you find your appropriate niche. You find the place where the value you're trying to create for the world, it finds its perfect balance.
Yes.
And if you also do that at the philanthropy and investment level, then you free investors, you liberate investors from having to get 10 times their money or 4 times their money on 1 out of 10 risky investments. You instead create an ecosystem of enterprises that are very secure and safe, like a Mondragon ecosystem. And you bring investors in and say, you may not make as much, but it'll be safe and secure. And the same thing with the philanthropists. You say, what if you could, instead of just give your money away and rely on tax credits, what if you could be part of the family here? And maybe you'll make money, maybe you won't, but you're able to empower patient capital in a way that the system can't presently. And when you combine those two, so we have the wealth generation circle. We have those that are what we used to call nonprofits and for-profits. We call them wealth generation circle. And what we used to call philanthropists and investors, we now call the wealth cultivation circle. And then we bring in the third part, which capitalism hasn't tended to pay for, which is the wealth integration circle. And those are the people that weave the non-monetary and the monetary wealth together and spin off more wealth and create the whole circle's community. And so we're basically creating.
Sorry.
Excuse me?
What does that look like, these weavers?
So basically, they're the ones that are setting the community circle. They're setting the processes. They're setting the container. They're setting the ethical or spiritual, if you like, container for everyone else. They're establishing the internal valuation accounting system.
Yes.
Metacurrency based, of course. And so when you have that whole circle together, now you can really do things together. And what you've eliminated is the alienating relationships of capitalism. You've now brought people into what we like to say is that we're all upholding each other's core gifts. We're all upholding each other's wealth. And so that's not just a theory. We're actually forming the first circle. We have former investors and former philanthropists at the table, and we have many businesses, and we're actually putting together our first wealth stewardship circle.
Wonderful.
So congratulations to the summit, because Caroline and I had a long talk about how she really needs that circle. Like the summit is really she's really talking about the same model, and a lot of us are all seeing the same model. Yes. So it's very exciting. We're starting to transcend some of the inherent limitations.
Say thank you so much for that. I really feel that that's one of the incredibly important conversations to have at the summit. I'd love to find out from you some of the questions that you're bringing to the summit. What is it that you want to have answered? What is it that you want to know?
One of the biggest questions is going to be, how do we all collaborate and not get caught up in the old fears of territory, turf, ego? There's a lot of very powerful people coming to the summit that have their life's work on the line. And we're really understanding, all of us understand that if we don't collaborate, we won't succeed. And yet at the same time, there's a sense of wanting to steward your work well and bring it out in the right sequence and in the right circles, and make sure that it does not get co-opted by those that might take it somewhere. And most of us know each other. Most of us are invited. I think all of us trust who's been invited, but you never know how open to be with work that could be very, very revolutionary. But it's not that we want to be profiteering on it, but we want to steward it well. We want to make sure that it rolls out in the right sequence. And so that's a tricky question that we'll all be looking at. And I'm also, excuse me, go ahead.
And it's important work.
Yeah, that's modeling the work in a deeper level as well for the world. And so that's a big question. I think the other question is, what are other people's applied experiments, and how are they doing? It's a chance to really compare notes and say, what have you tried? What have you worked? What has worked and what has not worked so well?
Great. Well, I'd love to hear your insights about some of the folks that are coming, because you do know quite a few of the people. So what's some of the work that you're excited about collaborating with and sharing?
Well, I actually am somewhat of a newcomer to the full circle because Fernanda was actually supposed to be coming to this and she couldn't, so I'm coming instead. I have, like I've mentioned several times, I have great respect for Arthur Brock, the work he's done. Michelle Bowens is a total hero of mine. The P2P work is just, it's so fundamental and it has built so much over the years. Tiberius has work that's I'm just now getting into and loving reading. I had the pleasure and honor of meeting Matthew Slater, Matt Slatz at Fintoran at the Global Eco Village Network Summit just 3 or 4 months ago, and we had a total instant psychedelic connection. He's just a very great thinker and very clear, and so just really loving. And that's about who I know the most. I've had some great Skype sessions with Warren, and Carolyn herself is just bringing so much. So
yes,
yeah, excited to meet the rest. I'm aware of their work, but have not really met too many.
Great. And so some final thoughts and some final hopes for the summit.
Yeah, I just hope that we can really look at how we can apply, pick an art object, pick a football, pick something that we can all play with and gather around and apply ourselves to. I think Arthur Brock brings several of those. He's got a lot of different models he's working on now that really work. I think our wealth stewardship circle could be exciting. I'm not attached to which one we pick, but I really want to dig our teeth in and help each other and make something happen.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jeff. Really appreciate the work that you're doing and absolutely looking forward to meeting you at the summit. So thanks so much for joining us today.
And thank you for the role you're playing. It's crucial getting the word out. So it's so much looking forward to your work as well.